This is Conversations with a Citizen. I'm your host, Tia Carol Jones. I'm here today with Vondale Singleton. Vondale is the founder and CEO
Yes, ma'am.
of CHAMPS Male Mentoring Program. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. How
Thank
you
you.
doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing just wonderful.
That's
Thank you.
great. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Vondale Singleton, as you just introduced. I am born on the south side of Chicago. Grew up in the Bronzeville community. In late 70s, early 80s, lived in a place called the Otterby Wells Housing Projects. It was my mother and my father both lived there, and I was the firstborn child. And earlier on in my life, I saw some things, was a part of some things that I probably shouldn't have been exposed to at an early age. Make a long story short, I lost my mom. She died in '94 when I was 14. She was only 29. She, struggled with a lot of things in her life. Was a sweet woman, but she didn't have the guidance to really help her navigate the tough streets of Chicago during that time. And of course, my father, he was involved and around in my life ever since I was a child. And he too went through a lot of tough circumstances in his life. And so it was a mentor that helped me get to where I'm at today.
Why did you want to start CHAMPS?
So to segue from the last line, it was a mentor that helped me get to where I'm at today. In 1997, I was 17 years old and had already gone through the burial of my mom 3 years earlier. My father at that time was incarcerated. I lived with a family friend who really became a second mom to me. And that was because a friend invited me to his home because he knew of my situation, but he also wanted to provide a place of comfort for me. And so I'm really grateful for that friend. He was really a brother to me and helped me navigate some very, very challenging times. And it was another friend who introduced me to the Upward Bound program where I met a gentleman by the name of Stephen Robertson. And he said, "Have you flown on a plane before?" And we were getting ready to go to San Francisco. I would never forget it. And I said, "No, sir. Never flown on a plane before." And so my first flight was in '97 to San Francisco, and that would be the critical moment to change my life forever because it exposed me beyond what I remember, what I saw, what I was used to, and going out to see Stanford University, going out to see UC Berkeley, going to the Pier 39 and going to visit Alcatraz. It was the first time, again, I'd flown on a plane, but it was also a real opportunity for a mentor to say, "I see greatness on the inside of you." And I'm like, "No, he can't be talking about me. Let me look behind. Who is he talking to? Not me. No, you. God has his hand on your life. He's going to do something great in your life." And language I didn't understand at the time, but it all makes sense now. So within that same year, I enrolled into Oral Roberts University, a Christian school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And for the first time in my life, I thought maybe, just maybe, I can be the first one out my family, my immediate family, to graduate from college. And so the story goes, end of my senior year, getting ready to graduate from college, I called that mentor up and I asked him one simple question. "Sir, what do I need to do to pay you back for what you've done for me?" Because 4 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible had you not asked me the question, "Have I ever flown on a plane?" And not only did you talk the talk, you walk the walk, you helped me get onto the plane and go and be exposed. And so I said, "What do I need to do to pay you back for what you've done for me?" And he said, "The same thing I did for you, do for somebody else. That's how you pay me back." I was 22 at the time. And I knew that it was a deep connection to the power of mentorship that God put me on the earth to do. So I became an educator, met my wife. She's also an educator, principal. and just began to work my purpose and calling through the educational system as a teacher. And then moved into a dean and assistant principal, and saw a need and a similar need for young men that looked like me, that were struggling. And I saw myself in each and every one of them and said, well, I needed to do something. This is an opportunity to create CHAMPS, which stands for Culturally Helping and Making Positive Success.
It's powerful. What is CHAMPS's mission, and has it changed since its founding to accommodate the times?
So CHAMPS stands for Culturally Helping and Making Positive Success. We believe that every young man is born to win in every situation in life. No excuses. One-parent home, two-parent home, you're black, white, rich, poor, grew up in poverty, grew up down the street, in Pookie's house, it doesn't matter. We believe you're born to win. And the difference between that belief and the action that goes with that belief is where we come in at. So our mission is simply to use the 3 E's, which are education, empowerment, and exposure, and provide opportunities for boys and young men of color to fulfill their dreams and their goals in life. So we work with them every single day, every single Saturday, and provide opportunities around SEL, which is social emotional learning. And we provide mental health space, creating a safe space, removing barriers, and leadership development, along with the appropriate opportunities to help our young men escape the rhetoric and the narrative that they will die or end up locked up before 18.
How does CHAMPS seek to make a positive impact on young men in the community?
So twofold. One, the question before was, has our mission changed in terms of accommodation? Yes. We've gotten a lot more innovative in our strategies. Mentorship is not, here's the master teaching the student and let me take you out to lunch and pat you on the back after the baseball game we just watched. I think mentorship has changed in adaptability in terms of looking at the climate, looking at the circumstances and situations that systemically impact and affect the livelihood of not only that child you're mentoring, but that child's family, looking at the environment and the community and digging deep to figure out how do we create a short and long-term plan to help this young person prosper and feel that they have the advocacy, the empowerment, and the tools and resources to become successful. So going from just meeting on Saturdays, our young men started to graduate from high school. And then those questions from freshman year to who am I as a man to where am I going to go? How am I going to live? What are the choices I need to make to survive in a legal way? What jobs and opportunities do I have? So really grappling with the holistic approach. And then knowing that they are part of families. Like, how do I begin to provide the extra support and help for families? So throughout the COVID, especially, we had to, of course, everybody used the word pivot, and I know it sounds cliche, but literally we couldn't stop providing that support because really and truthfully, some of our young men, the only opportunity that they had was to be in a CHAMPS program where they felt like they were safe. And so with that being shut down, we had to say, how do we provide food for families, counseling for families, rent, utilities if necessary. So through other partners, we were able to do that and do it at a very, very high level, tens and tens of thousands of dollars, going back into the homes of our young people to say, here, we're here with you, but once we come out of this, what's the next plan? And some of them would say, Mr. Singleton, I really need a job. Can you help me find a job? And I say, what are you skilled at? What are your gifts, talents, skills, and abilities? And if you don't know what they are, let's start to do some self-discovery and get you around and expose you like my mentor did for me. And then maybe a light bulb will come on and say, oh, yeah, I forgot I can draw really well. Or I forgot I like to write poems or poetry. And you know what, Mrs. Singleton, I love to cook. So let's use what's already there in your hands and let's cultivate it. And let's get you around others who care and maybe a little bit further along in that process that can kind of help mentor you and coach you. So innovation and strategy-wise, we're always looking to think, How do we get ahead of where we know our young men are going? How can we begin to dig deeper to figure out what does the family need to help support that young man outside of our care? So many great partnerships and connections we've made along the way to kind of help us think through a lot of these processes, especially when you're talking about boys and young men, whether they're in school, whether they're outside of school, whether they're in the penal system, whether they're juvenile, whatever it is, we're trying to help them all. As a matter of fact, about 20 minutes ago, I just got a phone call from a young man who just got out of jail. Okay. And his mom found out about our program a few days ago, and she called a few days ago and said, my son is coming home, and I don't know what to do with my son, but I heard about your program, and this is the last thing that I got. So please, can you help my son? I said, absolutely. When he get out, make sure the first thing that he do, put him on the phone with me, and we're going to walk with him, and we're not going to give up on him.
When did you know the program was going to be successful?
I knew when I was able to see young men change. Okay. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a metric that I used to determine that. It was once I saw a young man take a hold of what we were teaching, and they were able to articulate who they were, not through words, through action. So our program is really hinged upon real life, authentic change through a series of conversations, experiences that get them off the block, out that mentality where they succumb to their environment. And we apply that pressure and create these opportunities because we know for a fact that's what causes a real change. You can preach and teach, and I've done all of that until we blew in the face. But until we show and say, this is the way, walk in it. This is the way that I walk. These are the mistakes that I made. This is what you can learn from. So in essence, we become the blueprint that they can see, feel, and touch. There's no knock against the athlete and the entertainer, but 99.9% of the time, they can't touch them. They can't have a conversation. They can't pick up the phone and call their favorite athlete. Right. So I become your favorite because you can touch me. You can see me. I'm real. You see me as a man making mistakes and apologizing for them. You see me holding the door for young ladies that are walking in the building. And then we say, this is why you do it. Yeah.
What do you think it says about the efficacy of the program that municipalities want to partner with CHAMPS for their own mentoring programs?
I would say, at first there was some apprehension, like, why is Mr. Singleton spending all of these time with these young men who getting in trouble all the time and not doing well? And I used to think in my mind, why isn't Mr. Singleton spending the time with the kids who need me the most? So their initial were some challenges and questions about the motive and a role that I was taking in the lives of young people on every single Saturday coming up. Negative 14 degrees, and they're like, we cancel today? It's cold outside. I'm like, nope, because my mentor never canceled on me. So I wouldn't dare think to cancel. Remember, I got to pay a debt back. He said, the same thing I did for you, do for somebody else. This is not a game for me. I've been doing this 9 years, and I can tell you on one hand the number of Saturdays I missed. We're not canceling. Why? It's because the day I cancel will be the day they say Mr. Singleton wasn't consistent. Just like my father wasn't consistent. And I can't afford that. I got to report to the Father about what I've done on this earth in terms of what he's given me. Yes. So I want to be a good steward. Yes. And I can't play games with mentorship. Mentorship is the long walk. It's not overnight success. So you send Johnny to me, and you send Johnny's having problems, and he's being disrespectful. He's not engaged at home. He's hanging with the wrong crowd. Give me time. But I guarantee if Johnny can walk with me, because he's not going to beat me at being consistent. I'm going to show up when I say I'm going to show up. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. Why? It's because somebody did it for me. Yes. And it changed my life. I lost my mother. My father was locked up. And it changed my life. So I believe not just in the potential of mentorship, I believe in the power of mentorship.
And you kind of already talked about this, how your own experiences as a Black man shaped the way you developed the mentoring program. But can you talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, not only did it shape it, so when you talk about even the efficacy of our program and why municipalities and other people want to partner with our program, I think it's what you see is what you get. People know about CHAMPS and talk about CHAMPS organically because their young people are telling them about the experiences of CHAMPS. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. The first Black mayor of Calumet City is Mayor Thaddeus Jones. So I will never forget his son enrolling into our school at Gary Comer. He was an 8th grader, and he didn't want to be there. And I was responsible for providing a tour of the school. And so I'm walking him through, and Mom and Dad, they loving it. But he's not. I can look at his face, and he want to go to Simeon to play basketball. No knock against that. But his mom and dad said, well, we don't want you to go there. We want you to go here. So I pulled him aside and said, young man, I'm going to stick with you. I'm going to walk with you. And you're going to really enjoy this process. I know it may not make sense now, but trust me. He kind of looked at me and was like, okay, whatever you say. You know I don't want to be here. Well, the end of the 8th grade year, once he was on the honor roll and was on the basketball team and doing well, the young man came back up to me and said, thank you, Mr. Singleton. I feel like this is home. I appreciate you allowing me to be in a CHAMPS program. And now he's a second-year college student, and he's a mentor now. So now the mentee becomes the mentor. So once people see that the mentee who was a part of my program who wasn't doing as well as everyone else in school, getting kicked out of classes, getting in trouble, that other mentee is my program director now. So the proof is really in the pudding. So I can talk to you about data and talk to you about quantitative data and qualitative data, but it's when they begin to tell their own stories. You can't argue with that data.
Who inspires you, and how do you hope you are able to inspire the young men in your program?
I have quite a few inspirations. The young men inspire me. I don't look at myself as like I'm this master and they my student. We're co-experts.
Okay.
I learn from them just as much as they learn from me. And I think that's the reason why you have young men who've been around the program say, I'm going to build a community center one day, or I want to get involved with civic engagement, or I want to become a CHAMPS mentor. Because organically, that's how our program is built. They say, oh yeah, Mr. Singleton, you helped change my life. You know, young men tell me that all the time. Or you like my father. They say things like that to me, and I say, well, you changed my life. You teaching me things and you making me better so I can be more available to you. So our program is more of a co-expert model. It's not the master teacher model. And I think like the second piece, just making our program just super different and unique, is the fact that we have opportunities again to continue to innovate and to go back to our mission and say, you know, who else that's not at this table need to be at this table? So my staff inspired me. Okay. Mentees inspired me. My staff inspired me. My mentors, my original mentor, he's on my board that I met at 17, still a mentor to this day, and I'm 41. And so it shows you, again, mentor is a long game. I have Dr. Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip-hop preacher. He's a motivational speaker. He's very close, and we met through his mentor. Okay. He inspires me quite often. Michael Jordan's board chair for the Jordan brand, Larry Miller, he's one of my mentors. He inspires me. And the list goes on and on, but I would say my greatest inspiration is God and the Holy Spirit and my wife. I saved the best for last. I wouldn't do what I do. I wouldn't have the sense of direction and strong purpose around mentoring boys and young men of color if God didn't give me the passion, the zeal, and the strength to be able to do. Because we have some good days and we've had some bad days. Yes. But the good days outweigh the bad days. So I won't complain. And my wife, because every day when I go home, I feel safe as a black man. And today, it's not too many places where black men feel safe. And so to have a wife that God has blessed me with, that helps me go through bad days because we on the same page and we inspire and encourage each other. And by the way, did y'all know that it's National Cook Your Wife Dinner Day? Wow. She definitely sent me the graphic. So I said, what do you like? She said, surprise me. That was the text I got when I walked through these doors. So shout out to Dr. Vondale Singleton, who's a principal in Chicago Public Schools and the best principal in the city.
All right.
You talked about pivoting. You talked about providing food and counseling for not only the students in the program, but also their parents. But what are some other ways you were able to interact with the young men in the program during COVID-19?
We had virtual sessions every day. So they had accessibility. We had certain times where young men felt like they wanted to take themselves out through suicide, that we had to talk them off the ledge. We also had young men just feeling like they was in a trap house, quite frankly, and they wanted a way to escape. But the comfort to be able to express that to us shows the safety that they had, even though we wasn't in physical proximity of each other. The power of mentorship knows no boundaries. So even in a virtual space, our program began to grow. It was people enrolling still online to be a part of our Zoom sessions. Then in the summer, we did a summer program, and there was 30 young men that signed up, and we only took 30. And we almost had a wait list for that. And so I think throughout the pandemic, we were encouraged to, again, do more listening than talking, to figure out how do we create solutions in the toughest time of humanity, especially for our underserved and underprivileged boys and young men of color that were in homes where home wasn't the safest space for them. And the moment they can get on a Zoom for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour, that was the highlight of their day. And so we wanted to make it as welcoming as we possibly could. And, you know, for Christmas, we had to do home visits to drop off food and clothes and gifts to each and every one of our young men. And we split up the whole Chicago area to ensure that we did it. Sending gift cards, paying for bills, funeral bills. If somebody died of COVID, CHAMPS came in and we wanted to make sure we helped the family. Utilities, like car, transportation, you name it. Whatever the situation was, we just came together as a family and do what we've always done. We persevered and made it through.
Where can people go to find out more about CHAMPS Male Mentoring Program?
You can find more about CHAMPS online. Our website, of course, is www.champsmentoring.org or .com. We own both domains. And of course, social media is at CHAMPS Mentoring is our handle. So you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We have our own Facebook page. And we're in the process of taking 23 young men to New York for Christmas. So Giving Tuesday is November 30th. So don't forget about CHAMPS as a charity that you can give a tax-exempt donation to. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're pretty transparent about everything that we do.
Before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to add?
Mom, son, father, brother, uncle, auntie, cousin, grandma, grandfather, I'm calling you to have your men and young men come out this Saturday at Gary Comer Youth Center from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're having a very real and important conversation with Chicago Police Department, where officers will be coming into our session and to dialogue, to listen and hear, answer questions from our young men. There's a lot happening in our city. There's a lot happening in our world. And part of it is sitting down and having a conversation and getting some clear understanding. So again, this Saturday, please meet me at Gary Comer Youth Center, 7200 South Ingleside Avenue, 60619 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We have in the Chicago Police Department have some conversations with our young men.
Thank you so much. This was so powerful.
Thank you.
Remember to make plans to join us again next week for Conversations with the Citizen.